In this lesson, we are going to talk about the importance of parents seeing themselves as mentors for their teenagers. I don't know about you, I'm raising a teenager right now, and it is a very complicated time in a kid's life, right? I mean, they are really just being bombarded by all sorts of voices out there in our culture. You know, every day at school, they are with their peers, and they're hearing the things their peers are saying and the things that their peers care about. They're watching TV shows and movies, and social media has opened up this whole other world of just lots of voices talking to our teenagers. And that's why it's important for us as parents to understand our role as mentors for our kids, that we need to become the loudest voice in their life. And when I say the loudest voice, I don't mean we just yell the loudest, but I mean that when we've got all these other messages bombarding our teenagers, as the parents, we need to have the most influential voice. That's what I mean by the loudest, that you understand that you have a role to play in helping to silence the voices out there that are not productive or healthy and that are not the direction you want your teenager to go. You have to be able to offer them something else to be listening to. Here's why it's important for parents, for us to realize how important it is to see ourselves as mentors. It's because our teens are in the spreading their wings time of their life, right? They're really starting to wrestle with some important questions. Erik Erikson, a psychologist who did a lot of study on how the personality develops, he came up with these psychosocial stages of development. And what he says is that at each stage of life that he determined is there's this crisis that has to be resolved. And so in the teen years, that crisis is the crisis of identity. Who are they? Who do they want to be? Who do other people think that they are? Who do other people want them to be? So they're starting to wrestle with that and trying to resolve that crisis. And it's important then as parents that we come alongside our teenagers and recognize that that's a question they want to ask of themselves. Who do they want to be? What is their identity? And help them form that and help them understand it before some of those other voices out there that aren't going to be as productive or healthy start shaping them before we have a chance. Here's the reality. Your teenager is ready to start thinking more independently. And so what can happen then in the natural course of parenting is we still want to parent our teenager like we did when they were younger, which is these are the rules. This is how it goes, and what I say you do, and you do it immediately. And though that's important, and that is very important in the early years of parenting, as they hit that teenager time in their life and they're really wrestling with identity and wanting to have more independence, then as parents, if you're really trying to mentor your kids along in that, we want them to be independent, right? I don't want my child to be living at home when she's 25 years old. I want her to feel like this is her time to start spreading her wings and really figuring out who she is in the world and who she wants to be. So as a parent, I need to come alongside her and instead of trying to beat that down or discourage independent thinking, I need to help shape it as she goes along. So at 13, I'm teaching her certain things and giving her only limited freedoms. But by the time she's 16 or 17, college is only a year away. I need to be giving her more and more freedom to exercise that independence. That's part of what's important to nurture that in our kids. So parents, here's how we need to think about it then. We need to view ourselves as that mentor in their lives. And what is a mentor? A trusted guide and counselor. That's what we need to be to our teenagers. It needs to be less emphasizing just the do as you're told, the kind of the taskmaster. But again, like I said, there's time where that role has to come into play. But if you really want to mentor your teenager, you need to come alongside them and show them that you care about them, that you want them to feel some more independence, and that you're really a trusted guide, that you're a person that they can come to when they're feeling sad or worried, or when they come home from school and say, this is what kids are doing on the weekend, or this is what so-and-so said to me, or my friends are starting to do these kinds of things with the opposite sex. That instead of you just being like, whoa, and don't hang out with them anymore, and don't you ever dare do that, that you sit down with them more like a mentor would in your own life. You know, think about that as an adult, what you would want a mentor in your life to be, not just the person pointing the finger and saying don't or do, but to sit down and say, well, let me hear about this and let me hear your thoughts and what do you feel about this? And really start to become a trusted guide. Now, guide is a key component to that, right? We're still leading our teenagers in the direction we want them to go. They need us to do that. But we've earned their trust that we care about them as individuals, that we're not just being from a parent point of view and thinking this is the way you have to do it, but thinking more and allowing them to have more say in the conversation and even in just the feelings and direction of how things could be resolved. So the mentor, understanding who you are as a mentor is really important in how you're going to parent your teens successfully. So parents, once you understand your role as a mentor, that you're a trusted guide and a counselor, you need to lead your teens with purpose and a plan. It isn't enough to just say, that's great, I want to be a mentor for my teenager, I want to lead them along. But if we don't know where we're trying to lead them to, then we're really going to be pretty limited in our ability to make an impact in a positive way as a mentor. So as parents, start asking yourself the questions, who do I want my teenager to be? Who do I want them to be amongst their friends? How do I want them to be at school and sports and other extracurricular activities? Do I want them to be more present, or how do I want them to be in the home? How do I want them to act in other areas of life? All of those questions. What are our future goals for them? Do we want them to go to college? And what does that mean? Do we want them to travel the world and experience all sorts of things? Whatever those goals are that you have for your teenager, you need to start guiding them towards those, right? You need to ask your teenager the question, what do you think your goals and aspirations are? And start to come up with a plan and help them to think about what's their purpose, right? The biggest question any person can ask themselves, especially our teenagers, is what's your purpose in this world? And if you come from a Christian background and perspective to say, who has God made you to be? And how do you think He wants you to interface with this world? So what does that mean? So if you're really mentoring your teenager, then you have a plan and a purpose, and you're encouraging your teenager to think about every decision they make, everything that they're doing along those lines, that they have a purpose in mind, that they have a plan of where they're trying to go. That's so important. Here's the last thing I want to say about the importance of parents for you to see yourselves as mentors for your teenagers is to remember that what you do and what you say has a very big influence on if you really can mentor your teenager well. Teenagers are very keen on authenticity, right? They clue into people that are fakes or hypocrites or not genuine people pretty quickly. So they can figure that out in us as parents as well. So here's another point that I really want to make sure that you think about as parents, that as parents, make sure you model for your teenager a pursuit of God. It isn't enough for you to just say, hey, go to church. Hey, you should probably read your Bible. Do you ever pray? You should probably pray. But if they never see you as the parents having anything to do in your own pursuit of God, then it's kind of hard for them to want to listen to you, right? Again, if you're really thinking of yourself as a mentor to your teenagers, then they as much are going to be following what you say as what you do. And they're going to be more likely to trust in you more if they see that your actions match up with your own words. If you're rebuking your teenager for something, but yet you're doing it 5 minutes later, you're not really having the kind of impact that you should be wanting to have as a parent. So it's really important for you to model your own pursuit of God, that your teenager sees you reading the Bible, that they see that prayer is an important part of your own life and for that of your family life, that you would pray together as a family. It's important that you model for them the kind of characteristics in their personality and in their character that are representative of what God would say in the Bible. Really at the end of the day, I think what we need to know as parents that, in my opinion, we aren't going to get very far if we don't establish ourselves in a foundation in the family that starts with God. And if we don't have the Bible as the foundation, then we're just kind of making up the rules and going whatever direction we want to go. So I think for you as parents to really think about the pursuit of God in your family, in your own life, and how you're trying to encourage that in your teenager, because that is the anchor. That is the only way to really know what direction to go, is to go the way God intended you to go. Let that pursuit of God be something that's always present in your home, not something that you just do on Sunday morning when you go to church, that it should be something that's around and in the family life all the time, that you think about God, that you read the Bible, that you pray together. And I promise you, if you're modeling that and you're setting that tone in your home, it's way more likely for your teenager to head that same direction than if you're not modeling that and it's not something that you do in your home. That's going to be very hard for your teenager to learn how to do that, because they need you. That at the end of the day, I think for us to know, Parents, you're mentors. You are leading your kids. They need you. And if you aren't going to be the loudest voice or the biggest influence in their life, then somebody else is going to take that spot. And that can be very dangerous and sad. And you may find yourself in a situation with your teen that you never would have wished for them. But remember as parents that role of responsibility of being a mentor, it's with us. And we need to take the job seriously and lead our kids in the direction we want them to go.